Why do Serbs, so-called Greeks post-year 1800, and Slavic Bulgarian of the so-called Macedonia, post-Tito and Stalin, call the autochthonous Albanians as coming from Mother Turkyie? Where do they get that from? What record? Where is it documented? Is it because the Turks forced the autochthonous Arben to convert to Islam, just as the new Asia Minor imported orthodox new so-called Greeks forced the autochthonous Arven to convert to the newer orthodox religion? Because the Albanians have always been in the Ylliric peninsula, since at least the Bronze Age, before the Slavs and Turks came to the peninsula, which is why glossaries and archeological records show the language and the culture was the same. That's who the ancient Macedonians of Emathia are, not Stalin's and Tito's slavic-turkic Bulgarian, and Serbian new so-called Macedonia. Ancient Emathians were not of Slavic Serbo-Russian or mixed with Turkic blood like Bulgarians. Who was fighting the Turks and the Slavs during the Byzantine? Only the Albanians and Vlachs were. The Turks brought the new Orthodox from Asia Minor, and then the Sultan killed the Arvenite patriarchs and became the head patriarch of the new Orthodox. The Sultan and the Slav worked together to create new religious states, such as Greece, Serbia, and then later with Tito and Stalin, New Macedonia. The Serbian Slavs, such as Mahmud Pasha, a Serb known by his original name as Milhajo Angelović, working with the Ottomans to steal the autochthonous Arben's territories and forcefully convert them to either the new Orthodox or the new Islam. During the Byzantine, and even later during Skanderbeg, the Arben Albanians were Catholics. But then after, during the Slavs and Turks expansions and rise in power, the Albanians couldn't keep their Catholic faith or their original of divinity natural so-called paganism any longer, and could only choose between the new Orthodox or the Islam. So why was that the case? Because of the Ottomans and Russian Slavic interests. So if the Albanians were originally so-called pagans and Catholic, how then were they created by Turkey? As if the Albanians were the ones who were imported from Asia Minor during the three major populous exchanges. In fact, that's how the new so-called Greece and the new so-called Macedonia were created, by the Slav and Turks. You see, these sort of comments are a self-projection, and that's usually the case of the accuser, a projection of who they actually are. It's the new religious-based countries that came from Mother Turkyies, and Russian belly, not the autochthonous Arben Albanians, who've always been in the Ylliric Peninsula since BC, before the thought of the new perverted Roman and later Slavic and Arab religions. Wake up from your sleep and the Slavo-Serbian religious propaganda and brainwashing and actually research for yourself, and stop forcing the studious to responding to such ignorance and waste time. Yet they continue to comment on new posts and publishings with the same old hateful comments, as if scripted by a robot, programmed by Tito, Vucic, and Mitsotakis, Homer, Ptolemy, Pliny, along with the others that I always mentioned when speaking of European origins, and its original language and its dialects. They always mention the Illyrians, and their language as the first language and indigenous people, unlike the new arrivals from Asia. Homer, Ptolemy, that I mentioned, spoke the same language with the same words as the tribal Geg dialect of Albanian today. As you can see in all ancient lexicons and glossaries, what did these people call themselves according to you? Macedonian or Greek? Just as the Grai or Greco tribes and the Macedonians are also of divinity origin, Ylliric tribes, or of the star origin, Ylliric, who spoke the same language. That is why the peninsula was called Ylliric and Pelasgian. Leka the Great had not been born yet. History originated long before the great Leka of Emathia. Did it not? So continue with arrogance and hateful remarks, just as the Serbs and the new post-year 1800s so-called Greeks do. Am I, in the Matrix, studying the entire history from Pliny, And the Pelasgians who lived as young as 18 years old until the age of 200 before they started to age? Did Leka, Alexander the Great Emathia, live like the Pelasgians? Leka was left with only his native tongue, Albanian, and was buried with his hands up empty. In the Matrix is the one who lowers themselves, repeating one of the historical mistakes that a 25-year-old Albanian from Greater Debra has made. The Albanian history is more than just that. My work is in the field of quantum biology for spiritual or of divinity intentional reasoning, or divine destined purpose, and its eternal resonance in the health or regenerative biology of man in mastery or soteria, which neither Leka nor a religious conqueror or any other conqueror inspired by ego has done. That is why when poor Leka approached the Indians, they said to him, "Again, you Atlanteans, for the second time? Oh, Alexander the Great idiot, what have you learned?" Be careful. That history is not one-sided or for boasting. It is for the development of compassion and a precious rich spiritual purpose. Enough of the Leka nonsense now, that we repeat the same mistakes due to propaganda and lack of historical knowledge. The great Leka's example should be at least 200 years old, or immortality, improving upon his lineage or ancestry. Not just showing the power in war. Our human history is not just that. The original of divinity pre-religious Pelasgian inspired Europe, and who knows, the world. Finally, speaking of religion, do you know what the symbol of the cross is? What is the word cross? Two cross directions. What are they? If you look at it, it is one of our national symbols, and it is pre-Christian. Pre-religious so-called Christian post-Roman Constantine. You see it embroidered on the Albanian national clothes. You see it on their ancient tombs. And you also see it in the symbols of other ancient peoples. What is it? The Christian church says that it is the death and resurrection of Christ. So Christ, in order to be resurrected, had to cross the cross. But even in death, he goes through it. But what is this cross? What does it show? Do you know how to understand the cross within yourself? There are many esoteric explanations, but this symbol seems to be of the Ylliric Pelasgians. It seems to have a connection with their race. But what is this death? What is this closed gate in the shape of a cross? And what is this symbol of resurrection through the cross? It has been used by the Rosicrucian in various sects and entire crusades. Peoples disappeared in its name, but also kingdoms and great powers. But what is this cross? What are these two directions on the cross? The Anunnaki diagram depicts an 8-pointed star on it, like the 8-sided pyramid of Giza. And this sign is also on Illyrian tombs. What do you know? You do well to seek, because you cannot receive your inner enlightenment if you do not open its gate. In alchemy, it is the intersection of the 4 elements, air, water, fire, and earth. While enlightenment comes from the 5th element, which is called ether, ether, the whole. Eternity, eternitai, the whole, and also you. Etere, ni, tai, the whole, in you. On church language, meaning the kingdom inside you. Don't ye know ye are gods? Time comprehend etymology, bringing forth the calling and burning desire is your deliverance of your soteria being.